Why positive thinking often fails and how the real route to happiness involves a pencil, keeping the perfect diary, small acts of kindness, and developing the gratitude attitude persuasion. Why rewards fail, how to give the flawless interview, improve your social life by making mistakes, never lose your wallet again, and convince anyone of anything by using your pet frog motivation. The dark side of visualization, how to achieve absolutely anything by creating the ideal plan, overcoming procrastination, and employing doublethink. Creativity. Exploding the myth of brainstorming, how to get in touch with your inner Leonardo merely by glancing at modern art, lying down, and putting a plant on your desk. Attraction. Why you shouldn't play hard to get, how the subtle art of seduction involves the simplest of touches, roller coaster rides, and avoiding artificial Christmas trees. Relationships. The perils of active listening, why Velcro can help couples stick together, words speak louder than actions, and a single photograph can make all the difference. Stress. Why not to kick and scream, how to reduce resentment in seconds. Harness the power of a four-legged friend, and think your way to low blood pressure decision making. Why two heads are no better than one, how never to regret a decision. Again, protect yourself against hidden persuaders, and tell when someone is lying to you. Parenting. The Mozart myth, how to choose the best name for a baby, instantly divine a child's destiny using just 3 marshmallows. And effectively praise young minds' personality. Why not to trust graphology, how to gain an apparently magical insight into other people's personality from their fingers and thumbs, their pets, and the time they go to bed. Conclusion. Sophie's answer, 10 techniques in 59 seconds. Acknowledgements. Notes. Introduction. Self-help exposed. Sophie's question, and the potential for rapid change. Do you want to improve an important aspect of your life? Perhaps lose weight, find your perfect partner, obtain your dream job, or simply be happier? Try this simple exercise. Close your eyes and imagine the new you. Think how great you would look in those close-fitting designer jeans, dating Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, sitting in a luxurious leather chair at the top of the corporate ladder, or sipping a pina colada as the warm waves of the Caribbean gently lap at your feet. The good news is that this type of exercise has been recommended by some in the self-help industry for years. The bad news is that a large body of research now suggests that such exercises are, at best, ineffective, and, at worst, harmful. Although imagining your perfect self may make you feel better, engaging in such mental escapism can also have the unfortunate side effect of leaving you unprepared for the difficulties that crop up on the rocky road to success, thus increasing the chances of your faltering at the first hurdle rather than persisting in the face of failure. Fantasizing about heaven on earth may put a smile on your face, but it is unlikely to help transform your dreams into reality. Other research suggests that the same goes for many popular techniques that claim to improve your life. Attempting to think yourself happy by suppressing negative thoughts can make you obsess on the very thing that makes you unhappy. Group brainstorming can produce fewer and less original ideas than individuals working alone. Punching a pillow and screaming out loud can increase, rather than decrease, your anger and stress levels. Then there is the infamous Yale goal study. According to some writers, in 1953 a team of researchers interviewed Yale's graduating seniors, asking them whether they had written down the specific goals that they wanted to achieve in life. 20 years later the researchers tracked down the same cohort and found that the 3% of people who had specific goals all those years before had accumulated more personal wealth than the other 97% of their classmates combined. It is a great story, frequently cited in self-help books and seminars to illustrate the power of goal setting. There is just one small problem: as far as anyone can tell, the experiment never actually took place. In 2007, writer Lawrence Tabak, from the magazine Fast Company, attempted to track down the study, contacting several writers who had cited it, the secretary of the Yale class of 1953, and other researchers who had tried to discover whether the study had actually happened. No one could produce any evidence that it had ever been conducted, causing Tabak to conclude that it was almost certainly nothing more than an urban myth. For years, self-help gurus had been happy to describe a study without checking their facts. Both the public and the business world have bought into modern-day mind myths for years and, in so doing, may have significantly decreased the likelihood of achieving their aims and ambitions. Worse still, such failure often encourages people to believe that they cannot control their lives. This is especially unfortunate, as even the smallest loss of perceived control can have a dramatic effect on people's confidence, happiness, and lifespan. In one classic study conducted by Ellen Langer at Harvard University, half of the residents in a nursing home were given a houseplant and asked to look after it, while the other residents were given an identical plant but told that the staff would take responsibility for it. 6 months later, the residents who had been robbed of even this small amount of control over their lives were significantly less happy, healthy, and active than the others. Even more distressing, 30% of the residents who had not looked after their plant had died, compared to 15% of those who had been allowed to exercise such control. Similar results have been found in many areas, including education, career, health, relationships, and dieting. The message is clear: those who do not feel in control of their lives are less successful, and less psychologically and physically healthy, than those who do feel in control. A few years ago I was having lunch with a friend named Sophie. Sophie is a bright, successful 30-something who holds a senior position in a firm of management consultants. Over lunch Sophie explained that she had recently bought a well-known book on increasing happiness, and she asked me what I thought of the industry. I explained that I had serious reservations about the scientific backing for some of the techniques being promoted, and described how any failure to change could do considerable psychological harm. Sophie looked concerned and then asked whether academic psychology had produced more scientifically supported ways of improving people's lives. I started to describe some of the quite complex academic work in happiness, and after about 15 minutes or so Sophie stopped me. She politely explained that, interesting though it was, she was a busy person, and she asked whether I could come up with some effective advice that didn't take quite so much time to implement. I asked how long I had. Sophie glanced at her watch, smiled, and replied, "About a minute." Sophie's comment made me stop and think. Many people are attracted to self-development and self-improvement because of the lure of quick and easy solutions to various issues in their lives. Unfortunately, most academic psychology either fails to address these issues or presents far more time-consuming and complex answers, thus the scene in Woody Allen's film Sleeper, in which Allen's character discovers that he has awakened 200 years in the future, sighs, and explains that had he been in therapy all this time he would almost be cured. I wondered whether there were tips and techniques hidden away in academic journals that were empirically supported but quick to carry out. Over the course of a few months I carefully searched through endless Journals containing research papers from many different areas of psychology. As I examined the work, a promising pattern emerged, with researchers in quite different fields developing techniques that help people achieve their aims and ambitions in minutes, not months. I collected hundreds of these studies, drawn from many different areas of the behavioral sciences. From mood to memory, persuasion to procrastination, resilience to relationships, together they represent a new science of rapid change. There is a very old story, often told to fill time during training courses, involving a man trying to fix his broken boiler. Despite his best efforts, over many months, he simply can't mend it. Eventually, he gives up and decides to call in an expert. The engineer arrives, gives one gentle tap on the side of the boiler, and stands back as it springs to life. The engineer presents the man with a bill, and the man argues that he should pay only a small fee as the job took the engineer only a few moments. The engineer quietly explains that the man is not paying for the time he took to tap the boiler but rather the years of experience involved in knowing exactly where to tap. Just like the expert engineer tapping the boiler, the techniques described in this book demonstrate that effective change does not have to be time-consuming. In fact, it can take less than a minute, and is often simply a question of knowing exactly where to tap. Happiness. Why positive thinking often fails and how the real route to happiness involves a pencil. Keeping the perfect diary. Small acts of kindness, and developing the gratitude attitude. Why is it important to be happy? Well, for one thing, by definition, you will feel better. But there is more to it than that. Happiness does not just make you enjoy life more, it actually affects how successful you are in both your personal life and your professional life. A few years ago, Sonia Lyubomirsky at the University of California and her colleagues set about the mammoth task of reviewing hundreds of studies in which experimenters cheered up selected people and then monitored the effects of their subjects' newfound joy. All sorts of procedures were employed to make participants feel happy, including having them smell fresh-cut flowers, read out positive affirmations, I really am a good person, eat chocolate cake, dance, or watch a funny film. Sometimes the experimenters resorted to trickery, telling participants that they had performed especially well on an IQ test or ensuring that they accidentally found some money in the street. Regardless of the method used, the overall result was clear: happiness doesn't just flow from success, it actually causes it. After trawling the data from hundreds of studies involving more than 250,000 participants, Lyubomirsky discovered impressive benefits to being happy. Happiness makes people more sociable and altruistic, it increases how much they like themselves and others, it improves their ability to resolve conflict, and it strengthens their immune systems. The cumulative effect means that people have more satisfying and successful relationships, find more fulfilling careers, and live longer, healthier lives. Given the emotional and tangible benefits of happiness, it is not surprising that everyone wants a slice of the pie. But what is the most effective way of putting a permanent smile on your face? Ask most people the question, and you are likely to receive a two-word answer: more money. In survey after survey, the need for a fatter wallet consistently tops the must-have list for happiness. But is it really possible to buy happiness, or do financial aspirations set you on the road to despair? Part of the answer comes from a remarkable study conducted in the 1970s by Philip Brickman from Northwestern University and his colleagues. Brickman wanted to discover what happens to people's Happiness when their financial dreams come true. Does a huge windfall really create a long-term smile, or does the initial thrill quickly fade away as newfound fortune becomes commonplace? Brickman contacted a group of people who had won a major prize in the Illinois state lottery, including several who had hit the $1 million jackpot. For a control group, he randomly selected people from the Illinois telephone directory. Everyone was asked to rate how happy they were at that moment and how happy they expected to be in the future. In addition, they were asked to say how much pleasure they derived from everyday activities in life, such as chatting with friends, hearing a funny joke, or receiving a compliment. The results provide a striking insight into the relationship between happiness and money. Contrary to popular belief, those who had won the lottery were no more or less happy than those in the control group. There was also no significant difference between the groups when it came to how happy they expected to be in the future. In fact, there was only one difference. Compared to those who had won the lottery, the people in the control group derived significantly more pleasure from the simple things in life. Clearly, winning the lottery is a rather unusual way of obtaining financial security, but psychologists have also examined the relationship between income and happiness among those who have worked for their wealth. Some of this work has involved carrying out large-scale international surveys by having people rate how happy they are, usually using standard 10-point scales that run from very unhappy to very happy, and then plotting countries' average happiness ratings against their gross national product, GNP. The results suggest that although people in very poor nations are not as happy as those in wealthier countries, this disparity vanishes once a country has achieved a relatively modest GNP. Research examining the possible link between salary and happiness found the same type of pattern. One study, conducted by Ed Diener from the University of Illinois and his colleagues, revealed that even those on the Forbes 100 list of the wealthiest people are only slightly happier than the average American. All of this adds up to one simple message. When people can afford the necessities in life, an increase in income does not result in a significantly happier life. So why should this be the case? Part of the reason is that we all get used to what we have very quickly. Buying a new car or a bigger house provides a short-term feel-good boost, but we quickly become accustomed to it and sink back to our pre-purchase level of joy. As psychologist David Myers once phrased it, thanks to our capacity to adapt to ever greater fame and fortune, yesterday's luxuries can soon become today's necessities and tomorrow's relics. 6. If money can't buy happiness, what is the best way of putting a long-term smile on your face? The bad news is that research shows that about 50% of your overall sense of happiness is genetically determined, and so cannot be altered. 7. The better news is that another 10% is attributable to general circumstances, educational level, income, whether you are married or single, etc., that are difficult to change. However, the best news is that the remaining 40% is derived from your day-to-day behavior and the way you think about yourself and others. With a little knowledge, you can become substantially happier in just a few seconds. The problem is that the advice offered in some self-help books and courses is at odds with the results of scientific research. Take, for example, the power of positive thinking. Does the road to happiness really depend on people's being able to simply push negative thoughts out of their mind? Actually, research suggests that such thought suppression may be far more likely to increase, rather than decrease, misery. In the mid-1980s, Harvard psychologist Daniel Wegner chanced upon an obscure but intriguing quote from Dostoevsky's Winter Notes on Summer Impressions. Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a polar bear, and you will see that the cursed thing will come to mind every minute. Wegner decided to carry out a simple experiment to discover if this was true. Each person from a group of willing volunteers was made to sit alone in a room and told to think about anything, but not to imagine Dostoevsky's white bear. Everyone was then asked to ring a bell each time the band bear sprang to mind. Within moments a cacophony of bells indicated that Dostoevsky was right. Attempting to suppress certain thoughts makes people obsess on the very topic that they are trying to avoid. Other work has shown how this effect operates in real life, with one study, conducted by Jennifer Borden and Elizabeth Casey at Hamilton College in New York State, providing a dramatic demonstration of how it influences people's moods and self-esteem. 8. Borden and Casey asked a group of people to describe their most upsetting thought about themselves. The researchers then had half of the group spend the next 11 days trying to push this thought out of their minds, while the remaining participants were asked to carry on with life as usual. At the end of each day, everyone indicated the degree to which they had dwelled upon their upsetting thought, and rated their mood, anxiety level, and self-esteem. The results were conceptually similar to those obtained by Wegner's white bear experiment. The group attempting to actively suppress their negative thoughts actually thought more about them compared to those going about their business as usual. The suppression group also rated themselves as more anxious, more depressed, and having lower self-esteem. More than 20 years of research have demonstrated that this paradoxical phenomenon occurs in many different aspects of everyday life, showing, for example, that asking dieters not to think about chocolate causes them to consume more of it, and asking the public not to elect fools to positions in government encourages them to vote for George Bush. 9. So, if thought suppression is not the answer, what can you do? 1. Possibility is to distract yourself. Perhaps spend time with your family. Go to a party, get more involved in your work, or take up a new hobby. Although this technique can often provide an effective short-term boost, it will probably not lead to a long-term sense of contentment. For that, research suggests, you need to know how to use a pencil, how to keep the perfect diary, how to carry out small acts of kindness, and how to develop the gratitude attitude. Creating the perfect diary. All of us will experience unpleasant events during our lives. Perhaps the breakup of a long-term relationship, the death of a loved one, getting laid off, or, on a really bad day, all three. Both common sense and many types of psychotherapy suggest that the best way forward is to share your pain with others. Those adopting this a problem shared is a problem-halved approach believe that venting your feelings is cathartic and helps you release negative emotions and move forward. It is a nice idea and one that holds tremendous intuitive appeal. Indeed, surveys show that 90% of the public believes that talking to someone else about a traumatic experience will help ease their pain. 10. But is that really the case? To investigate, Emmanuel Zek and Bernard Rime at the University of Louvain in Belgium carried out an important study. 11. A group of participants was asked to select a negative experience from their past. To make the study as realistic as possible, they were asked to avoid the trivial stuff, such as missing a train or not being able to find a parking space, and instead think about the most negative, upsetting, emotional event in their life, one they still thought about and still needed to talk about. From death to divorce, and illness to abuse, the issues were serious. One group of participants was then asked to have a long chat with a supportive experimenter about the event, while a second group was invited to chat about a far more mundane topic, a typical day. After 1 week, and then again after 2 months, all the participants went back to the lab and completed various questionnaires that measured their emotional well-being. Those who had spent time talking about their traumatic event thought that the chat had been helpful. However, the questionnaire results told a very different story. In reality, the chat had had no significant impact at all. Participants thought that it was beneficial to share their negative emotional experiences, but in terms of the difference it made in how well they were coping, they might just as well have been chatting about a typical day. So, if talking about negative experiences to a sympathetic but untrained individual is a waste of time, what can be done to help ease the pain of the past? As we saw at the start of this section, trying to suppress negative thoughts can be just as unhelpful. 12 Instead, 1 option involves expressive writing. In several studies, participants who have experienced a traumatic event have been encouraged to spend just a few minutes each day writing a diary-type account of their deepest thoughts and feelings about it. 13 For example, in one study, participants who had just been laid off were asked to reflect on their deepest thoughts and feelings about their job loss, including how it had affected both their personal and their professional lives. 14 Although these types of exercises were both speedy and simple, the results revealed that participants experienced a remarkable boost in their psychological and physical well-being, including a reduction in health problems and an increase in self-esteem and happiness. The results left psychologists with something of a mystery. Why would talking about a traumatic experience have almost no effect, but writing about it yield such significant benefits? From a psychological perspective, thinking and writing are very different. Thinking can often be somewhat unstructured, disorganized, and even chaotic. In contrast, writing encourages the creation of a story line and structure that help people make sense of what has happened and work toward a solution. In short, talking can add to a sense of confusion, but writing provides a more systematic, solution-based approach. This is clearly helpful for those who have been unfortunate enough to experience real trauma in their lives, but can the same idea also be used to promote everyday happiness? 3 different, but related, bodies of research suggest that this is indeed the case. The gratitude attitude. One of the most important writing techniques for boosting happiness revolves around the psychology of gratitude. Present an individual with a constant sound, image, or smell, and something very peculiar happens. The person slowly gets more and more used to it, and eventually it vanishes from their awareness. For example, if you walk into a room that smells of freshly baked bread, you quickly detect the rather pleasant aroma. However, stay in the room for a few minutes, and the smell will seem to disappear. In fact, the only way to reawaken it is to walk out of the room and come back in again. Exactly the same concept applies to many areas of our lives, including happiness. Everyone has something to be happy about. Perhaps they have a loving partner, good health, great kids, a satisfying job, close friends, interesting hobbies, caring parents, a roof over their heads, clean water to drink, a signed Billy Joel album, or enough food to eat. As time passes, however, they get used to what they have, and, just like the smell of fresh bread, these wonderful assets vanish from their consciousness. As the old cliché goes, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Psychologists Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough wondered What would happen to people's happiness levels if they were asked to carry out the conceptual equivalent of leaving the bread-smelling room and coming back in again? The researchers wanted to discover the effect of reminding people of the good things that were constantly present in their lives. 3 groups of people were asked to spend a few moments each week writing. The first group listed 5 things for which they were grateful, the second noted 5 things that annoyed them, and the third jotted down 5 events that had taken place during the previous week. Everyone scribbled away, with the gratitude group remarking on seeing the sunset on a summer day and the generosity of their friends. The annoyed group listing taxes and their children arguing, and the events group detailing making breakfast and driving to work. The results were startling. Compared to those in either the annoyed or the events group, those expressing gratitude ended up happier, much more optimistic about the future, and physically healthier, and they even exercised more. Your inner perfect self. When trying to write your way to a happier life, expressing gratitude is just the tip of the iceberg. There is also the notion of getting in touch with your inner perfect self. In the introduction, I noted that a large body of research shows that visualizing a wonderful future is unlikely to increase the chances of achieving your goals. However, other work suggests that when it comes to putting a smile on your face, such exercises are more likely to prove beneficial. In a classic study conducted by Laura King at Southern Methodist University, 16 participants were asked to spend a few minutes during 4 consecutive days describing their ideal future. They were asked to be realistic but to imagine that all had gone as well as it possibly could and that they had achieved their goals. Another group was asked to imagine a traumatic event that had happened to them, and a third group simply wrote about their plans for the day. The results revealed that those who had described their best possible future ended up significantly happier than those in the other groups. In a follow-up study, King and her colleagues repeated the experiment, this time having people describe on paper the most wonderful experience in their lives. 3 months later, assessments revealed that compared to a control group, those reliving an intensely happy moment were significantly happier. Affectionate writing. Finally, another body of research has examined the idea of affectionate writing. It may come as no great surprise to learn that being in a loving relationship is good for your physical and psychological health. However, are these benefits the result of receiving love, expressing love, or both? To find out, Corey Floyd, from Arizona State University, and his colleagues 18 asked some volunteers to think about someone they loved and spend 20 minutes writing about why this person meant so much to them. As a control, another group was asked to write about something that had happened to them during the past week. Each group repeated the writing exercise 3 times over the course of 5 weeks. Once again, this simple procedure had a dramatic effect, with those who spent just a few minutes engaged in affectionate writing showing a marked increase in happiness, a reduction in stress, and even a significant decrease in their cholesterol levels. In short, when it comes to an instant fix for everyday happiness, certain types of writing have a surprisingly quick and large impact. Expressing gratitude, thinking about a perfect future, and affectionate writing have been scientifically proven to work, and all they require is a pen, a piece of paper, and a few moments of your time. In